and it's time for us to begin our Hebrew language class for Year 2 students.
Yes,
We're going to begin by going to God in prayer. Father in heaven, we give you thanks for the internet service that we are getting, and we pray that you may help it to remain stable. We pray that those students that should come on will come on at this time, and that you will open our understanding to understand any new ideas that will be taught today. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Okay, we are beginning lesson 18, which is our final lesson for this term. And we will be having the final exam over lessons 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. You will have a special revision lesson for all of those lessons to prepare you strategically for the final exam. So let me begin the final lesson. There will be a test on this final lesson next week, God permitting. In lesson number 18, we're going to be looking at how persons who are copying the Hebrew scriptures made correction of any errors that they found had been made by previous copyists of the Holy Scriptures. They had a technique or a method of correcting the errors, and we are going to be learning about that in the next few seconds. Then we will be looking at the definite article in the Hebrew language. We'll be learning a few words in the Hebrew, and we will be practicing those words in the practice exercise that follows the list of words. We're going to be looking now at the general objectives for this lesson. The general objective is, the general objectives are, number one, to examine how the scribes or copyists of the Hebrew scriptures alert the reader to errors which are left in the text, but which should be read using the corrected word. And we're going to, number two, examine the definite article. The specific objectives are, one, at the end of this lesson, the students will have been able to explain why the scribes did not change the errors that they found in the Hebrew text and the method they have invented to call the reader's attention to an error so that they may read the correct Hebrew word. Number two, at the end of this lesson, the students will have been able to explain why the vowel under the consonant that makes up the definite article changes when used with different words. Okay, so let us look at correction of written errors by the reader. Corrections of recognized errors are made in the margin or footnote. Correct at the side or footnote that is at the bottom, while the uncorrected words are kept in the text. The refusal to change the text is due to the respect for it and acts as a protection from deliberately corrupting it or changing it. For example, the Hebrew word Yehovah, God's personal name, has the vowels of Adonai between the consonants YHWH, YHWH. This is not how God's personal name is spelt. It was written like this so that God's personal name would not be read, but that Adonai, meaning Lord in English, would be read instead. Now, this is just one way of getting the reader's attention that there is an error in the text. Now this word was created by the scribes or the copyists of the Bible because for 7,000 times in the Hebrew Bible, you have the consonants YHWH, and Hebrew scholars are almost completely in agreement that there are two possible pronunciations of YHWH. Remember that the original Hebrew did not use vowel symbols. They had vowel sounds, but they didn't have vowel symbols. So they used consonants only originally. So 7,000 times you have YHWH representing God's personal name. And there are two possible pronunciations of it. Number one is Yahweh, YAHWEH, and the second one is Yahweh, YAHAWEH, Yahweh. Okay, so we still have in the Hebrew Bible the personal name of God being spelt, and I'm using English letters, YEHOWAH. And some people, because they don't really know the Hebrew so well, they think that this is actually how God's name is spelt and pronounced. Because what has happened is that in some English translations of the Hebrew Bible, the Y is brought over as a J, the E remains an E, the H remains an H, the O remains an O, the W comes over into the English as a V, and the A is brought over as the A, and the H is brought over as the H, giving the word JEHOVAH, pronounced Jehovah. And they say that Jehovah is God's personal name. But they don't understand that the vowels that are between the consonants YHWH come from a different Hebrew word, Adonai, because the copyists of the Hebrew scriptures were afraid that if God's personal name was actually used, somebody in Israel might misuse it and bring upon themselves and perhaps upon Israel as a nation God's anger. Because in the Ten Commandments, God says that you shall not use my name in vain, which means don't use it for a purpose that is not good. Don't use my holy name in order to make a promise you don't intend to keep. Don't use my holy name when you are worshiping some false god or goddess. Don't use my name when you are vowing to take revenge on your neighbor. And I have said you must love your neighbor and don't take revenge on him. So in order to prevent disaster from coming on Israel, the copyists of the Hebrew Bible decided to make readers realize that when they saw YEHOWAH in the Hebrew Bible, it was incorrectly spelled because grammatically, the word cannot be spelled like this. And that they would see from the vowels that it belongs to another Hebrew word, Adonai, meaning in English, Lord. So whenever they saw Yehovah, they would know that this is an error and that they were to say instead Adonai instead of God's personal name. But God's personal name from YHWH is almost certainly believed by Hebrew scholars to be Yahweh or Yahweh. Now, God is not against anyone using his personal name as long as they use it in the right way. So there is nothing in the Holy Scriptures that teach that it is wrong to use God's actual name. Okay, so what the copyists did whenever they found any error in the text, they left the error in the text because they didn't want to set up a precedent or set an example for others to follow of changing different words in the text itself. So there are two places that they could put the correction, either in the margin on the left or on the right, or at the bottom of the page. Okay, so that's how they dealt with written errors and alerted the reader that there was an error so that they would read the correct word instead. Okay, we're looking at the definite article now. There is no word for the indefinite article in Hebrew, such as a or an. So it is not expressed in Hebrew. For example, melech means king or a king. Ayin means I or an I. The context implies that the word is indefinite. So there is no word in the Hebrew for the indefinite article, but the context will indicate when the English indefinite article may be used. The definite article the is said to have been originally hal, he, pathak, lameth. He is H, pathak is A, and lameth is L. And it is similar to the cousin language of Hebrew, which is Arabic, and that is the word al. In Arabic, the definite article is al. Originally in Hebrew, it was hal. He, pathak, lameth. When this definite article hal is attached to the word it defined, for example, hal melech, the vowelless lameth, because the simple shua under the lameth indicates that there is no vowel there. So the simple shua is there to point that out. There is no vowel under the lameth. When you have the vowelless lameth coming between the consonant he and the first consonant of the noun melech, the consonant mem, what happens is that the lameth becomes part of mem. It is said to be assimilated into mem or absorbed into mem, so that you don't see it, but you know that it has become part of mem because this first consonant of the noun melech, meaning king, has to receive what is called a dagesh forte compensative. That is a dot in the middle of mem to indicate that lameth has disappeared, has become a part of mem, and therefore this consonant mem has to be doubled or repeated. There has to be two m's in translating this into English. So the lameth became part of the next letter mem and caused it to be doubled with dagesh forte, indicated by a dot in the center of mem, producing ham melech, Hammellech. Ham-melech. And of course, you have the accent here, indicating that this syllable is to be stressed. Ham-melech, the king. Therefore, the definite article before an ordinary letter, that is, before a non-guttural letter, is ha, followed by dagesh forte. So that's the first thing to learn, that the definite article before an ordinary letter, that is any letter that is not a guttural letter. Remember that there are 4 guttural letters. You have aleph, you have he, you have keth, and you have ayin. So if the definite article is put before any other letter in the Hebrew alphabet, it is going to be he pathak, ha, a short a, followed by dagesh forte in the first consonant of the noun. Okay, so that's the first rule to learn about the definite article. The second rule to learn about the definite article is when the definite article comes before a guttural, aleph, he, keth, ayin, or resh, even though this is not strictly a guttural, since these letters cannot be doubled, certain changes in the vowel of the definite article have to be made. Number 1, the definite article before the weak gutturals, and these are the weak gutturals, aleph, ayin, and resh, will cause the vowel of the definite article to be lengthened from pathak to kames, that is from a to a. For example, ha'ayin, ha'ayin. Now notice that there is a kames instead of a pathak because there has been a lengthening. The ayin cannot receive a dagesh forte, and therefore the vowel that is underneath the definite article, originally pathak, has to be lengthened to its corresponding long vowel. So it is lengthened from short a to long a, from a to a. Ha ayin, which is the I. Then you have ha-or. Notice aleph. That's a guttural letter. So originally there was pathak under the he, but because the aleph cannot be doubled, the vowel that is underneath the he has to be lengthened to its corresponding long vowel from a to a. And ha-or is the light. And then we have harosh, the head. So even though this is not a guttural letter, this is also stated in the Hebrew grammar that if the definite article is put before the resh, then because it cannot be doubled, the vowel that was there originally, that is pathak, has to be lengthened to its corresponding long vowel from a to a. Harosh, harosh, the head. So we learn from this that the definite article, when it comes before a guttural, since these letters cannot be doubled, they cannot take the dagesh forte, in other words, and they cannot be doubled, then the vowel that is underneath the he of the definite article has to be lengthened. Since the consonant is a guttural letter and it cannot be doubled, then the vowel underneath the he of the definite article has to be lengthened to its corresponding long vowel from pathak, which is a short a, to kames, which is a long a. Here are some other changes. The definite article before the strong gutturals, he, keth, will have no lengthening of the vowel of the definite article, since Dagesh forte is said to be implicit in the harsh sounds of these gutturals. Let me explain what that means. Because these are said to be strong guttural letters, it is said that it is just as if the Dagesh forte, the strong Dagesh, has been put there, even though it has not been put there. And because it has the strength of the Dagesh forte, then there will be no need for the pathak under the he of the definite article to be lengthened, as was the case with the weak gutturals, when there was a need for the lengthening of the pathak to the kamis. So because these are not weak but strong, it is said that it is just as if they had a Dagesh forte in them. And so there is no need for the vowel that is under the he of the definite article to be lengthened from pathak to kamis. So it remains pathak. So you have ha koshek, meaning the darkness. Ha hekal, which is the palace. And there is no lengthening of the pathak under he. Another rule about the definite article and the vowel that is underneath the he of the definite article is before an unaccented ha and a, and always before ka, the definite article is he. So in this case, the definite article takes a segol, a short e sound. So if the first letter of a noun or an adjective does not have an accent over these syllables, ha, ah, then the definite article is put before any of them, the pathak underneath the definite article has to be changed to the segol. And so the definite article becomes he. Here are some examples. He harim. Harim means mountains. And when you put the definite article before this syllable of the word, ha, it doesn't have an accent. There is no arrowhead over it. So before an unaccented ha, the definite article is he. So you have he harim. He harim. If you wonder what this vertical line means, notice that it comes 2 syllables before the last syllable. Here is the last syllable, reem. This is the syllable next to the last syllable, and this is the second syllable away from the last syllable. And there is a rule that says that metheg, M-E-T-H-E-G-H, which means bridle in English, must be placed 2 syllables away from the accented syllable. And usually the last syllable of a word is accented so often that there is no need to put any arrowhead over it. It is just assumed that the accent is here. So this is 2 syllables, 1, 2, 2 syllables away from the last syllable. And so there is a pause after the definite article. He harim. He harim. And the same thing for each of these words. But the main thing I want you to see is the vowel change. That when there is no accent over ha in a word, the first syllable of a word, then the definite article changes from the pathak being under the he to it becoming segol, or a short e sound, he harim. You see the same thing with ah here. It's not accented. This ayin followed by kamis is not accented. The accent usually comes on the last syllable, and it's on the last syllable. The accent is not right here. If it were right here, you'd see an arrowhead. So since there is no accent, the rule says that the vowel under the definite article, in the definite article, must be a segol or e. He, afar, the dust. Here is another. He, kakam. So we also need to remember that before ka, the definite article is he. Before ka, whether ka is accented or not. Once it is ka, it always must have a change of the vowel from being pathak to being segol. So he kakam means the wise man, the wise man. Another rule for the definite article and the change that takes place in it, before an accented a and ha. Now notice the difference. This was unaccented. This is accented. Before an accented a and ha, the definite article is ha. That is, it has the long ah sound, the kamis, the ah. For example, hahar. Har itself means mountain. And when you put the definite article before the accented ha, it should have a change of the vowel from a pathak to a kamis. I want you to notice something. There is only one syllable right here that makes up this word. I need to explain this because it might confuse you right now. Leave out the definite article just for a few seconds. This word itself consists of only one syllable, har, which means mountain. And because it only has one syllable, there's only one place that the accent could go, and it's right here. So this is considered to be accented. It is just like the last syllable. It is considered to be accented, even without the accent symbol. So this is an accented syllable. So you don't see it, but this is just one syllable that makes up the word, and it must have an accent. And so we must understand that this is accented. So even though you don't see the arrowhead over the ha, it is accented because it's one syllable that makes up the word, and it must have an accent. So it is accented. So we are dealing here with the accented ha. And before an accented ha, then the definite article must have a kamis as the vowel under the he. Ha is the, har is mountain, the mountain. Now here is another. Notice this time you have the arrowhead, because this is not only one syllable in the word. It is not just har, but there is a second syllable. There's a second syllable. So you have one syllable ha and another syllable ra. Ha, ra. Here it was just one syllable har. But by the addition of the kamis he at the end, you have a different syllable right here. This can't go with this now. This goes with this part. So you have two syllables, and it is indicated that the accent is not here on the final syllable, but it is on the syllable next to the last syllable. So this is an accented ha. ha-hara, ha-hara. Ha-hara means to the mountain. So before an accented a and ha, the definite article is ha. Let me just go through those rules one more time here. The first rule and the general rule is the definite article, when placed before an ordinary letter, which is a non-guttural letter, is ha, that is its pathak, followed by dagesh forte. So you have ham melek, ham melek. That's the first rule. The definite article before a word that starts with a non-guttural letter is ha, followed by the dagesh forte in that first letter of the word. That's what it is. Then the second one is when you have the definite article before a word that starts with any of these letters, aleph, a, keth, ayin, or resh. These are guttural letters, and this is not a guttural letter, but it is having the same effect that the guttural letters have on the definite article. When the definite article comes before a guttural or resh, since these letters cannot be doubled with the dagesh forte, certain changes in the vowel of the definite article have to be made. So if the word starts with a weak guttural or with resh, then the pathak has to be lengthened under the he of the definite article to its corresponding short vowel, long vowel rather, and that's kamis. So you have ha being used before aleph, ayin, and resh. The long a, ha. The next rule is, if you put the definite article before the strong gutturals, he and keth, then the pathak will remain as it is. It won't be lengthened because the strong gutturals has the effect like the dagesh forte has in a letter that has been doubled. It has that effect. It doesn't double these letters, but because they are strong, there is no need to lengthen the vowel that is before it under the he of the definite article. And before an unaccented ha and a, it has to be a segol as the vowel, an e as a vowel under the he. And before an accented a and ha, the definite article must look like this, he followed by kamis. Now I know this is difficult to remember, but you'll have to read it over and over again to get it in your mind. Now we turn our attention to vocabulary. We're going to be learning some words. And here we look at bara. This is the Hebrew and this is the English letters. Bara means he created. Amar means he said. Ba, he came. El means to or unto. Min means from. We or ve means and. Ir means city. Elohim means God. Afar means dust. Ba means he came. Koshek, darkness. Now notice that the kolem or holem, which is this one here, unites with the dot over shin, because this is a shin, but you have the holem and the shin joining together to form one dot. Koshek means darkness. You have the same thing. Okay, you have a similar thing happening. This is the holem again. Only that there is not a dot over aleph itself. So this is rosh, meaning head. Hekal, meaning temple or palace. Melech, meaning king. Yom, meaning day. Layla, meaning night. Or, meaning light. Atham, meaning man. In the biblical Hebrew, this is a TH. In modern Hebrew, it is a D. Athama, same thing for this. In modern Hebrew, it's a D, but in biblical Hebrew, it's a TH. Athama, earth, land, ground. Okay. Now, the man said is expressed in the Hebrew word order as he said, namely the man. So you have Amar, he said, namely Ha-Atham, the man. And it's really to be translated as the man said. Customarily, the verb comes before the noun in a sentence. And so you have the verb first and the noun comes after. So it is the man said. The same is true here. God created is expressed by the Hebrew word order as bara Elohim, he created, namely God, meaning God created. The verb generally goes before its subject, the noun subject. This is the normal word order in the Hebrew. When special emphasis is laid on the subject, then you find that the subject comes first in the sentence. For example, Ha-Atham Amar. Ha-Adam Amar means the man said. Ordinarily, you wouldn't put the noun or the subject first, you'd put the verb first. But if you want to emphasize the noun or the subject in the sentence, you put it first. Okay, now let us see if we can do some practice here. So we have Melech. Melech means a king. And this is the definite article before Melech. And you see that the definite article consists of the He followed by the Pathak, and then there's a Dagesh forte in the first letter of the noun. So you have Ham Melech, meaning the king. You have Yom, meaning day. And when you put the definite article before this non-guttural letter, you have the Ha, the He, followed by the Pathak, and you have the Dagesh forte in the Yoth, giving you Hayom, meaning the day, Hayom. Layla is night. And when you put the definite article before Layla, notice what happens. You have He, followed by Pathak, and then you have Dagesh forte in Lameth. Hal Layla is the night, or means light. Notice what happens though. When you put the definite article before a word that begins with a weak guttural, such as Aleph, then you're going to have the lengthening of the kames of the definite article to its corresponding long vowel, which is kames. So pathak a becomes kames a, ha or, the light. Here you have ear, city. And notice that before ayin, there is a lengthening of the vowel from pathak to kames, ha ear, the city. Rosh is head. And notice that the definite article before the resh means that because the resh cannot be doubled, there has to be a lengthening of the pathak to its corresponding long vowel kamis. So you have ha rosh, the head. Koshek is darkness. Now, notice that because keth is a strong guttural, and it is like dagesh forte, there is strength here. There is no need for the pathak under the he of the definite article to be lengthened. So it remains pathak. Okay, so hakoshek, the darkness. Hekal is temple or palace. And notice the same thing happens here. He is another strong guttural. And because it is like dagesh forte, there is no need to lengthen the vowel underneath the definite, under the consonant he of the definite article. So it remains pathak. Ha hekal, the palace or the temple. Afar means dust. And notice that the definite article before an unaccented a means that there is a change from the pathak to a segol. So you have the segol or the short e sound. He, afar, the dust. Hayom, so this is the normal thing. You have the ha, the he, followed by the pathak and the dagesh forte in the first consonant or letter of the noun. Hayom is the day. We ha laila. Where is the conjunction and? And notice that ha comes before a non-guttural letter. So you have the he, pathak, followed by dagesh forte, which doubles the lameth. We hal layla. So this is translated as the day and the night. Haor, notice that before the aleph, which is a weak guttural, there has to be a lengthening of the vowel underneath he, which is lengthened from pathak to kamis. So you have haor, the conjunction we, and then notice there is no lengthening of the pathak here because this is a strong guttural letter. So we ha koshek. This is the light and the darkness. Melech is king or a king. Where is the conjunction and atham is man. King and man, or a king and a man. Then we put the definite article before these different nouns. Ham melech, non-guttural letter. So we find that you have he, pathak, and there's a dagesh forte in the first letter of the noun. Ham melech. This is supposed to have another dot. So this is we ha atham. This is a weak guttural. So this is lengthened from pathak to kamis, its corresponding long vowel, from a to a, ha atham. This is the king and the man. This is a king and a man. Athama is ground. Athama is ground. We is the conjunction and, afar is dust. And this is without the definite article. Ground and dust. Now with the definite article, you have ha athama. Ha athama. And notice that this is the first letter of the noun, athama. This is a weak guttural, so the vowel underneath the definite article, the consonant he, has to be lengthened from pathak to kamis. Ha athama. Where is the conjunction? And notice that the definite article has a segol underneath the he, because before an unaccented ayin followed by kamis, there has to be a change of the vowel from pathak to segol. So he afar, this is the ground and the dust. Ir is city, where is the conjunction and, hekal is palace or temple. So we have city and palace, or city and temple. Now we put the definite article before each of these nouns. Ha'ir is the city. And notice that there has to be a lengthening of the vowel under he of the definite article, because this is a guttural letter and the ayin cannot be doubled with a dagesh forte. So it requires that there is a lengthening of the pathak, the a, to the long vowel a, ha'ir, the city, where ha, hekal. Now notice there is no lengthening of the pathak under the consonant he of the definite article, because this is a strong guttural letter, and it's not just like there is a dagesh forte there, a strong dagesh. So you don't lengthen this. There's no need to lengthen it. So it's ha hekal, meaning the palace or the temple. Okay, now we have a longer sentence here. Bara Elohim, which, notice this is the verb, comes first and the noun comes second. Bara Elohim, he created, namely God, or God created, Atham, that is man, min, from, and this is a makef which binds or connects min to the definite article and the noun. So ha athama, notice this is kames and not patak, because the aleph is a weak guttural, and therefore it requires that there is a lengthening of this patak to kames. Ha athama. The whole sentence reads, God created man from the ground. God created man from the ground. Notice how similar the two words are, atham and athama, because atham came from athama. Atham was made from the ground. Ba is a verb that means he came. Ham melek, notice this is a pathak. This is a non-guttural letter here that is doubled with dagesh forte. Ham melek, this is the king. The king came. Min, from. Ha hekal. Notice that there is no lengthening of the pathak under he of the definite article, because this is a strong guttural he, which is like a dagesh forte. So it remains pathak. Ha hekal, the palace. The king came from the palace. Amar Elohim, this is the verb and this is the noun. He said, namely God, or God said. El is a preposition, unto, and it is joined by makef to the definite article and the noun. Unto ha atham. Notice the aleph is a weak guttural, and therefore the pathak here has to be lengthened to its corresponding long vowel kames, ha atham. God said unto the man. Okay, we el ha'er, ba hamelech. Okay, literally, and unto the city, the king came. Bara Elohim or min hakoshek. God created light from darkness. All right. That was a practice on the use of the definite article. So what I want you to do for your homework is to study this lesson. You'll have to read it over and over because there are some new ideas here. Lesson 18, study it, and you will have your final test on lesson 18 next week. And after that, we will revise lessons 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 with a special revision lesson that has already been prepared to strategically get you ready for your final exam. All right, so yes, Brother Solin, let me hear your question.
Yes, sir. The question that I have, sir, is le and l the same thing?
Is what now?
Le and l.
Okay, le, LL.
No, le and l, because I've just seen in the vocabulary that you said L mean to or onto. However, in the previous class, we were looking at le Elohim, and we have said that it means to God.
Okay,
If le and L are the same thing.
or L is a different word from Elohim. As you can see on the screen, is this the word you were talking about?
Yes, sir. Sometimes you write it as Lamed before Aleph.
Sometimes the Lamet is before the Aleph.
Yes, sir. That's what I've seen in the previous class.
Okay, whenever you have Lameth before Aleph, and there is a holem or kolem over the Aleph, that is a Hebrew word that means not. And it is used when you are forbidding something permanently. Something is never to be done. But when you have the Aleph before Lameth and you have the vowel segol under the Aleph, it is the preposition to or unto. There's another use of Aleph Lameth. If this were a sire and it didn't have this dot down here, and this was a long E sound and pronounced ale, this would be another noun meaning God. This would be the shortened form of the word God. Okay, but the vowels do change. The kind of vowels sometimes do change the meaning of words, and the order of the consonants will also change the meaning of the word.
Yes, sir. I understand what you said, but what I'm saying, sir, is that, in the previous lesson that we have learned, there is an example that you were giving, which was le Elohim. But you said
Okay.
that, yes, sir, it was gonna be le Elohim, but le meant to. So since now we are talking about L and le mean to as well, I'm asking, if they are basically the same thing, or if they have the same meaning?
Okay, I see what you're saying. These are two prepositions. Le by itself means to.
Okay.
Lameth with the simple shua underneath it
Okay.
means to. What happened when it was placed before Elohim is that the Aleph in Elohim, being a quiescent letter, was not pronounced. Well, it's ordinarily not pronounced either. And the Katef Segol, the composite shua that was under the Aleph, dropped out altogether. And the simple shua that was under the Lameth of the preposition le was lengthened to sire. And so it was put to Elohim, and instead of saying le Elohim, you said le Lohim.
Yes, all right.
Yeah,
Great.
but le is to, and el is another preposition that means to.
Okay, sir.
Yes, the difference between the two is not so much in what they mean, but in how they interact with other words. The le, which is to, is called an inseparable preposition. That is, it joins to a noun, and and it becomes one with that noun. L, though, is not joined to a noun unless it is done by a makaf, a horizontal line that joins it to another word, but it's not directly joined to a word. So it stands by itself, though it is translated in the same way.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
There's an additional difference. El has the additional meaning of unto, whereas le simply means to. So el also deals with your movement towards an object or your movement towards a goal, having to do with your purpose or your objective.
All right, sir.
Okay. All right. So next week is your final test, God permitting. So your homework is to study this lesson. I'll be sending it to you later on today. And we will start our official revision after the test. If there is any time after the test, we will begin. If there is no time after the test, then we will start the following week in a special revision lesson.
Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you all, and God bless you all.
All right, sir. Simple.
Yes.